how cold is not enough.
Hello guys, and welcome back to JP Aviation, where we'll be bringing you aviation news, updates, history, and science and technology right to your ears. We're taking off our first episode with B747, also known as Queen of the Skies. The Boeing 747 was manufactured by the Boeing Commercial Airplanes. This large, long-range, wide-body airliner was manufactured in the United States from 1968 to the 2023, almost a 55-year production line year. The first flight took place in February 9th, 1969, 54 years ago. But who bought the first flight? Well, Pan American. Their CEO met up with Boeing CEO, Bill Allen at the time, and they had a meet. So 707 was one of the first flights that actually was one of the biggest flights at that time, and they wanted something which could bring down the airline cost, could travel longer distance, and be more efficient fuel-wise. So Juan Trepe met up with Bill Allen to talk about the new airplane at the time, which weighed 747. The 747 had multiple variants, as the 747 SP, the 747-400, the 747-8, the VC-25, the E-4, the 747 Supertanker, which also got developed into the following: the Dreamlifter, the YAL-1, the Shuttlecraft Carrier, and the Sophia. The 747 was also known as the Queen of the Skies, the Jumbo, and the Whale. 747, let's talk about the specs. Well, we could see the height from the wheels to the tail wing was about a 6-story building, with the wingspan of being two 737s parked nose to tail. The 737-700s could be parked nose to tail and have two of them, which will equal the wingspan of the 747. The original 747 had the engines from Pratt&Whitney, the JT9D turbofan engines, which later was implemented by General Electric, the CF6 and the Rolls-Royce RB211 engines for the original variants. The variant we're talking about for specs was the only information I could find currently was the Boeing 747-400, which had a length of 7.67 meters, height of 19.41 meters, the wingspan of 64.44 meters. The tailplane span was 22.7, with carrying over 416 to 524 passengers and the cruise speed of Mach 747 could travel over 90 miles, nautical miles. So 7,790 miles, nautical miles. It could carry over 450 passengers with a takeoff weight of nearly 1 million pounds. Right now, to put that in today's time, that's pretty much the A320, but not, think about it, A320 came out just recently, a couple 10, 15 years ago. This is a plane from 55 years ago. This plane has been developed into the Air Force One as we speak. This plane has carried a shuttlecraft, the NASA Atlantis, from California, where they was manufactured, to the launching point in Cape Canaveral, Florida. This plane could pretty much do all of the impossibilities, all of the impossible. It can make impossible to possible without any hassle. Let's learn about some nice fun facts of the Boeing 747, also known as the Jumbo Jet. The 747 had over 1,500 made in the time span. It was the world's first double-decker plane. Think about it, double-decker at that time. The first maiden commercial flight was in the 1970s, which can accommodate over 660 passengers and typically carries around 350. But at that time, what a scene at that time. Till now, it had over 5.56 billion people who have traveled in it. Some quirky facts include it only had 14 stairs. 8 steps, only 14 to get to the top every single time. It had over 365 switches and dials. Think about it as a pilot, 365 switches and dials to memorize which everything is. The tires were actually not inflated with air. Actually was inflated with nitrogen, so at impact it would not explode. That's a really quick, like very at that time to think about all these type of different factors. That's a big deal. Think about this is at the 1960s when this was manufactured. But think about at this time, people still put air in their tires. But at that time to think about no, we should as having such a big landing gears. Or like there's 3 sets of landing gears in the back. There's a in the one that on the nose comes down, there's another one there. But having nitrogen had impact over carrying over 1 million takeoff weight. Yeah, it's coming back for landing, you won't have nearly 1 million, but you'll still have around 400,000 pounds, including the passengers, including the air hostages, the thing, cargo load, and just the rough weight of the 747. 747 also had 14 air hostesses on board. Normal time at that time was only 6. To have 14, that also boosted the interest of air hostesses because they needed more in the market. After launching around 1,500 planes were made since now. Some of them were cargo, so let's say around 1,000. 1,000 times 4, so let's say 1,000 times 14, that's 14,000 air hostesses per each flight. Now having multiple flights in a day, in and out, the air hostess can go one flight and then go and hop into another flight. There's multiple flights that happen every single day. So just thinking about these type of aspects, the air hostess market actually bounced up because there was a need of there was a demand of air hostesses. No fun fact, Joe Sutter, the father of the 747, actually had many setbacks because the FAA, not the FAA exactly, but just different people in the news and the articles trying to give Boeing a setback was 500 passengers traveling in an airliner and million takeoff weight was just leading us as a total disaster at the time. Because think about it, right now we have an A320, but we have the latest technology and advancements that could feed feeds it. It's feasible for it to be taking off. But at that time in the 1960s, 1970s, that's a very short time. It's only been a couple, like 100, like 60, 70 years when before Wright brothers actually brought this plane into in reality. So just thinking about this makes the airlines, the people who want to fly, were very like worried about if this is actually going to work. If we should actually sit in such a cheap plane, like it's not a cheap plane, but cheap to buy a ticket and just fly in a 747 at the time. But the team stood by. Joe Slater and his design team actually launched the 747 within 29 months, 2 years and 5 months. Like that's insane. So the decline. Decline of the Boeing 747. While I have talked about the other reasons, one of the main reasons was the new A380 manufactured by Airbus. The Airbus A380 had a larger, wider wingspan, whereas the 747 was not actually that, it wasn't that big. Think about even that. The A380 was actually the world's largest passenger airline, while the 747 marks its second place. The A380 was actually more quiet and provide better humidity and air pressure in the cabin, whereas the 747 was quiet, loud, and slightly behind in the air cabin atmosphere because at the time it's not the thing. Even though there's different variants of the thing, you're still using the same technology inside. You can update the technology, but having the Airbus coming from scratch, you can see that A380 was actually more in play for this one. Actually, the A380 actually had a significant longer second deck, whereas the thing was only partial for 747. As you know, the 747 was also known as the hump nose. The A380 was actually a straight cylinder, wide, a thicker, more cylinder, and it had excellent safety record with zero fatalities, whereas the 737 involved in multiple severe incidents over the years. Many the biggest and the most crazy accident was the one I recently just talked about in Spain, when the two KLM and Pan Am's accident happened with over 500 occupants who have passed away. Some specs that we can talk about: the A380 could carry over 853 passengers, while the 747 lacks at 605, while the engines are the Engine Alliance GP7200 or the Rolls-Royce Trent 900 turbofans, while the GENX-2B was a 747 with over range of 8,000 nautical miles, over 14,800 kilometers, and the 747 only had 7,720. Well, it's not that much. It's not a big distance gap, but still, as coming to the cruise speed was actually slower. It had 903 kilometers per hour, Mach 85, and the 747 was 914 at Mach 0.86. The fuel capacity was 85,472 US gallons. That's around 323,546 liters, while the 747 was 663,034 US gallons, which comes around 238,610 liters. Cabin pressure was at 6,000 feet, while the 747 cabin pressure was at 7,000 feet. The origin of the thing was multinational. It was actually made by Airbus in France, but the 747 was actually manufactured in the United States fully, with the turbofans coming from either Pratt&Whitney, GE, and Airbus actually had their things come from Pratt&Whitney, well, Rolls-Royce, and the Engine Alliance. So it's actually multinational. Although the A380 was not the first double-decker aircraft, it was actually the first that would actually meant double-decker, as the 747 was only partially double-decker, while the Airbus is actually fully double-decker. Only in the 747, you actually have to go closer to the nose to go up to the double-decker, and it's only lasted around 25% of the aircraft, while the A380 was actually completely double-decker and can hold 800 passengers. In fact, the oldest 747 still flying is the Saudi Arabian Royal Flight. They still operate the Boeing, the oldest known 747, which is approximately 43 years old, which is even older than the Air Force One. In conclusion, this is the last part of the episode one, the Queen of Skies, as we have talked about the history, the specs, and the decline. Thank you for tuning in with JP Aviation today. Hope you guys have a good one, and see you guys in the next episode. I'll have some hints coming out soon. So if you have any questions, please put in the comments down below. And thank you for watching with JP Aviation. Have a good one.